Welcome to The Binger. For 15 seasons, Grey's Anatomy has treated fans to a whole lot of on-screen drama. Yet, starting from its earliest seasons, the show was often just as dramatic behind the scenes. And it was because of that off-screen drama that many of the show's characters have exited. Whether they left in a body bag, chose to walk away, or were unceremoniously written off, many of these exits were unexpected, and some were downright surprising. In this video, we're taking a look at some of Grey's Anatomy's character exits that were a result of behind-the-scenes drama. Caution, there are spoilers ahead. Number 1. Isaiah Washington. Let's start things off with one of the oldest and most infamous scandals in Grey's Anatomy history. When the series began in 2005, Isaiah Washington played Preston Burke, a brilliant surgeon. He was an important character on the show and eventually became Christina Yang's mentor and love interest. However, all wasn't well behind the scenes. Rumor swirls that Washington was clashing with his co-stars, and eventually it was reported that Washington had a shouting match with co-star Patrick Dempsey in which he used a homophobic slur. Fans speculated that this had something to do with co-star TR Knight, who came out publicly shortly afterwards. None of this reflected well on Washington, and while he released a statement apologizing to Knight, the damage was done. By the end of the show's third season, Washington was written off. While Washington didn't seem to take this dismissal well at the time, at some point, things took a turn for the better. In 2014, 7 years after he was fired from the series, Washington made a guest appearance on a season 10 episode opposite former co-star Sandra Oh. Number 2. TR Knight. Just a couple years later, viewers witnessed the life of Knight's beloved character Dr. George O'Malley come to an end. It was an unexpected and heartbreaking twist. This time, though, the actor wasn't fired, he chose to leave. Yet the reasons behind that decision are still pretty dramatic. Knight told Entertainment Weekly his decision came after he saw George's screen time start to dwindle. He also claims there was a breakdown in communication between him and Grey's creator Shonda Rhimes. As a result, Knight felt he couldn't believe what he was told about his character. If that weren't enough, Knight also said that Rhimes didn't support him when he came out in the wake of the scandal with Isaiah Washington. Rhimes denied the last claim and said she simply wished Knight well after he departed from the show. Despite the hard feelings that seemed to lead to Knight's departure, ultimately, it seems he and Rhimes are on good terms today. In 2017, he had a multi-episode arc as the brother of the main character on the short-lived series The Catch, which was produced by Rhimes. Number 3. Brooke Smith. Where'd you go, Dr. Erica Han? Brooke Smith started on Grey's Anatomy in 2006, and as time went on, her role seemed to get larger and larger. Eventually, she became the love interest of Dr. Callie Torres, and then, after an argument, she walked off and was never heard from again. There's never been a clear reason why this happened, even Smith herself doesn't seem to know. However, there were rumors at the time that the character's exit wasn't the producer's call. Instead, the theory goes the show's network demanded Dr. Han get the axe because they had issues with her being a lesbian. For her part, Rhimes denied Smith was let go because of her character's sexuality. She claimed it was simply a matter of a lack of magic and chemistry. We may never know what the reality was, but one thing's for sure, Dr. Han deserved better. Number 4. CHYLER LEIGH. Today, she plays the smart and powerful adopted sister of Supergirl on the superhero's self-titled show. However, CHYLER LEIGH first came to widespread public attention when she was introduced as Lexi Gray on Grey's Anatomy. She had a plum role as lead character Meredith's long-lost sister. Yet, Lexi was abruptly written off the series as she succumbs to wounds she sustained in a plane crash. Leigh's statement following her departure made no real attempts to explain why she was leaving the series, but according to Rhimes, she and Leigh made the difficult decision to end Lexi's story arc together. More recently, though, Leigh went public with the challenges she faced due to undiagnosed bipolar disorder. This eventually led to her hospitalization sometime in 2014 toward the end of her run on Grey's. Leigh has since been properly diagnosed and learned to manage her mental health. However, it seems possible that the difficulties of her condition at that time may have impacted her decision to exit the show. Whether that's the case or not, we're very happy to hear Leigh is doing well and was willing to share her inspirational story with the world. Number 5. Eric Dane. Eric Dane, who played mixed-steamy Dr. Mark Sloan, left Grey's Anatomy a short time after his character's longtime love interest Lexi. At the time, Dane said it was his decision, and he resurfaced a couple years later as the lead on the TNT series The Last Ship. Since his departure, however, Dane has implied that he may not have felt as good about his experience on Grey's as he claimed. According to E! News, it wasn't Dane's choice to leave. He was written off after the network asked Rhimes to cut the budget, and she decided his number was up. Then, in a 2014 interview, Dane claims that he was just a piece of meat on Grey's Anatomy. Number 6. Sandra Oh. Sandra Oh's departure wasn't the result of backstage antics or a lack of professionalism. In fact, the original cast member would likely have been welcome on the show indefinitely. However, Oh decided that after 10 seasons and over 200 episodes, it was time to move on. This devastated Rhimes, who loved Oh's portrayal of Dr. Christina Yang. According to Oh, the decision wasn't an easy one though. Before leaving the show, she went to therapy to work on letting go of her character. In the end, the choice has worked out well for Oh. She's gone on to appear in critically acclaimed projects that have brought her even more accolades. Number 7. GAIUS Charles. GAIUS Charles's Dr. Shane Ross joined Grey's Anatomy as one of the new class of interns that included Camilla Luddington's Joe Wilson. Yet, seasons later, while Joe is still on the series, Dr. Ross is practically forgotten after appearing for only 2 seasons. It's unclear why Charles got the boot. The only thing we know for sure is that his contract wasn't renewed. So Dr. Ross was written off the show and hasn't been heard from since. Number 8. TESSA FERRER. Someone else who had a very similar experience? TESSA FERRER, who played Dr. Leah Murphy. She arrived with the same class as Charles's character, and the circumstances behind her departure, as far as we know, were pretty much the same. Her contract wasn't renewed beyond the 10th season of the series. The difference is that 2 years after her departure, Ferrer's character returned to the hospital for a 6-episode arc. Clearly, although her character was gone, the writers did not forget her. If you haven't already subscribed to The Binger, why not do it now? And hit that bell for notifications, because we all know how YouTube can be sometimes. If you want notifications and you're on mobile, check out your YouTube settings. Now, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Number 10 and 11, Jessica Capshaw and Sarah Drew. You can't talk about the season 14 exit of Sarah Drew without talking about the simultaneous departure of Jessica Capshaw and vice versa. The show announced the pair would be leaving, surprising fans and leading them to speculate about what could have possibly happened. After all, Drew, who played Dr. April Kepner, and Capshaw, who played Dr. Arizona Robbins, were a big part of the show at that point. It was hard to imagine the show just didn't need them anymore. One thing we know for sure is that it was the producer's decision, and Drew and Capshaw seemed to be just as blindsided as the fans. Rumors soon started to swirl that the actors' contracts weren't renewed because of star Ellen Pompeo, who had received a big salary increase. This is something both Pompeo and showrunner Krista Vernoff denied though, and Vernoff insisted the decision was made for creative reasons. Number 12, Patrick Dempsey. While the brouhaha following Drew and Robinson's exits were bad, the drama around Patrick Dempsey's was far worse. For a decade, Dempsey had played Dr. Derek Shepard, the McDreamy of Meredith Grey's fantasies. So to say his departure was a surprise would be an understatement. Initially, Dempsey claimed that he was ready to move on and was simply disappointed with the way his character was written off the show. Yet, soon it became clear that something else must have been going on. After all, Dempsey still had a full year left on his contract, and the choice to leave wasn't his. There were rumors that claimed Dempsey behaved like a diva on set. Meanwhile, others assert that he had an affair with someone who worked on the show. Whether it was one or the other or both, Rhimes was not happy with him and no longer wanted to deal with his drama. Dempsey has publicly maintained that things are fine between him and Rhimes. Rhimes, on the other hand, said in an interview that she'd taken out a character on Grey's Anatomy because she didn't like the actor. Even though she didn't name names, fans thought they knew exactly who she was talking about. Number 13, Martin Henderson. Martin Henderson was another actor who seemed to be just settling into life at Gray Sloan Memorial Hospital when he up and left the series. His character Dr. Nathan Riggs was Meredith Gray's love interest following the death of Derek, but the relationship apparently wasn't built to last as Riggs was gone within 2 seasons. At last, he got a happy ending, walking off into the sunset with his long-lost wife. According to Henderson, he always knew his time on the show would be brief because he only signed a short-term contract. Pompeo said something that may shed some light on the reasons for the departure, though. She claims producers didn't like Riggs' storyline with Meredith, so they chose to end it. Number 14. Melissa George. It's hard to remember it 10 years later, but in season 10, Melissa George had a blink-and-you-missed-it arc on the show. She played Dr. Sadie Harris, whose ambiguous sexuality and questionable morality didn't exactly endear her to fans. Yet, many thought she would become a series regular until her unceremonious departure. George claimed she wanted to leave the series to do something else, while the network said her character's story came to a natural conclusion. Number 15. Loretta Devine. Loretta Devine is not someone who ever seems to be gone from our screens for too long, and for many seasons, she appeared on Grey's Anatomy as Dr. Weber's wife Adele. The character eventually passed away because of Alzheimer's disease, a storyline that was given its full due by the time it came to an end. For Devine, however, it seems the arc gave her a pause. At the time, she didn't feel like she was old enough to play someone with Alzheimer's. Luckily for the show, she played her role beautifully. Number 16. Scott Foley. Scott Foley had a memorable guest starring role in the series during its 7th season. He played a patient named Henry who didn't have insurance and married Teddy to get it. Of course, Teddy fell in love with him, but couldn't save him from eventually succumbing to his disease. Later, Foley said that appearing as a guest star on the series was challenging because he couldn't get comfortable. He went on to appear on Scandal, another Rhimes series, for several years. Number 17. Jeff Perry. Another Grey's guest star who went over to Scandal was Jeff Perry, who played Meredith Grey's absentee father, Thatcher. Ultimately, he only appeared on the series a few times between 2006 and 2019, when Thatcher's storyline was officially wrapped up. Perry was never a huge presence on the series, but he did have to take an extended hiatus to appear on Scandal. Between 2011 and 2019, his character wasn't seen on Grey's at all. Number 18. JERRIKA Hinton. JERRIKA Hinton played competitive, dedicated Dr. Stephanie Edwards on the show. That is, until her character was badly burned in a fire at the hospital and decided she no longer wanted to be a doctor. While it seems like an odd choice for Dr. Edwards, rumors had been flying for a couple of years that Hinton was on the verge of leaving. During her time on Grey's, she played the lead role in a pilot for Rhimes. Even though that series never saw the light of day, Hinton seemed to be changed by the experience, and one of the big decisions she made was to exit Grey's Anatomy. Number 19. Jeffrey Dean Morgan. These days, Jeffrey Dean Morgan is best known for playing the diabolical Negan on The Walking Dead. Before that, though, one of his most beloved roles was as dreamy heart patient Denny Duquette on Grey's Anatomy. Morgan always knew Denny wasn't long for this world. Still, when the time came for Denny to shuffle off this mortal coil, he begged Rhimes to let him stick around. Obviously, Rhimes didn't agree. However, Morgan still got to return to the role several times as a ghost version of Denny. Number 20. Katherine Heigl. We've saved perhaps the most dramatic series exit for last, that of Katherine Heigl. Heigl played popular doc Izzy Stevens for several years and won an Emmy for the role, but the tension behind the scenes became increasingly apparent during her tenure on the show. In 2008, Heigl withdrew her name from Emmy consideration. That might not have been a big deal had she kept quiet about her reasoning. Instead, she came out with a statement that implied the writing on the series wasn't very good. Fans expected she might be written off the show soon afterwards, but instead, she decided to renew her contract. It was a decision Heigl seems to quickly regret. Finally, 2 years later, Heigl made her departure, saying it was what she wanted. Later, Rhimes claimed in an interview that Heigl's exit stung, but she also expected it to some extent. Then she added this observation: "When people show who they are,
believe them. Rhimes didn't elaborate further, but her words indicate Heigl didn't leave the show on the best of terms. Clearly, Grey's Anatomy is quite the drama both on screen and off. Are you surprised by the reason behind any of these Grey's Anatomy actors' departures? Which actor do you wish had stuck around? Were there any you were glad to see go? Fill us in on your thoughts in the comments section below. And before you go, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to The Binger for more dramatic pop culture videos. Thanks for watching.